This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Funny, a few days ago I was texting with our friend Aaron Torres from the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast and Aaron Torres Media, Fox Sports Radio. He was worried that the UConn's head baseball coach Jim Penders may get hired somewhere else because they're doing well. They were ranked 10th the last time I looked, and we were going through some of the schools in the SEC that there may be openings for baseball coaches. Mississippi State is one of them. Georgia's one of them. Alabama wasn't on the list, Aaron, but they are now. They are now. There's an opening in Alabama right now.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't like you speaking into existence what we discussed, but no, I'm teasing. Yeah, no, it really just stems, Phil. Obviously, everyone knows I went to UConn, blah, 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 blah. But I also understand the limitations of the baseball program, and, you know, it's a conversation with UConn fans is I think you can argue what Jim Penders has done with the baseball program is more impressive than what Dan Hurley's done in basketball, winning a national championship, because there are limitations, cold weather school. And I think the other thing that's important to note, as much as I love my alma mater, we're not in a conference that pays us 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 million dollars a year in TV revenue. And so at some point, you know, at some point, like, I hate to admit it, but we could probably be outbid by some of the SEC schools if that's a decision that they tried to make. I know that when Michigan's head coach was actually hired by Clemson last offseason. By the way, Phil, we call them coaches or managers or skippers. What do we call them in college? Do we call them coaches?
They're head coaches. Yeah, they're head coaches in baseball still.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Michigan coach was hired at Clemson last year. The Michigan AD had come from UConn, and so I think he made a cursory call. But knock on wood, so far we've been able to keep him. But you didn't really bring it up to talk about UConn baseball. You brought it up to talk about Alabama baseball, and it's a crazy story. And, you know, I think there's a lot of layers we can dive into in a lot of different directions. But the two things that immediately jump out, it goes without saying this is another negative headline for Alabama athletics in general. I'll also say this, is that I think as mainstream sports betting becomes more popular, I think this is a good sign of how serious, you know, these boards and commissions and everybody take things when a random baseball bet 1,500 miles from the ballpark would be flagged and immediately, you know, shut down. I think it speaks to how serious this stuff is. And, you know, I think anybody that thinks, oh, you know, because a call went against my team that this game must be rigged or blah, 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 this and that. I went in a lot of different directions there, but those were kind of two quick thoughts on the Alabama baseball thing. But it's crazy, and I'm sure in your world, Phil, you're so plugged into the college baseball world, I can't even imagine what people are saying on a morning like today.
Well, it's like you said, because of the regulation behind legalized gambling. And, I mean, anybody that walks into a casino knows full well, if you pick your nose in a casino, they know what you took out of it. You know, I mean, they've got there's video cameras everywhere. You're not going to be able to hide anything from this. That's the thing, is how out in the open this was. That's one thing that I just can't wrap my mind around. I just think it's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
Yeah, Phil, that was actually my takeaway as well. As the details started to come out yesterday evening into the night, is like, listen, it's illegal. It's a potential. I'm not smart enough to know what kind of jail sentence or whatever it could carry, but it's also just insanely stupid. Like, if you're the baseball coach of an SEC program, it means you've been working your entire career to get to that point. And to be on the phone, whether, you know, we'll find out, was he betting against his team? Was he in on the bet? All that stuff. But to even be providing information from the ballpark to a friend to place a bet in a casino, it's just insane. And then, you know, I don't think we've confirmed exactly what the numbers were. I've seen different things floating around. But to place a sizable bet on a regular season LSU-Alabama game is just so dumb, so ignorant. You know, I saw ESPN's betting insider basically say he called around to two other sports books. One sports book didn't take a single bet on that game all night. Another sports book took a total of $35 in bets on that game. And so I just bring it up to put any large amount on that game and not think it was going to raise eyebrows. To your point, Phil, in an incredibly regulated space, in a space where every movement is followed and tracked, it's It's so stupid. It's so next level. And again, we could just talk about what it means for sports and sports betting, but I just keep going back to my number one reaction is it is just insanely stupid what, minimum these two individuals, the baseball coach Bohannon and his counterpart did. Just so idiotic.
Aaron, I want to ask you an NBA playoff question. If the Suns lose tonight, are they finished?
Well, I think the Suns are finished anyway, and obviously we don't talk a ton of NBA, but working the national radio show, I obviously monitor it. And one thing that stood out to me, Matt, is 2 years ago when the Suns made the finals, 2021. I know it was a weird year, COVID, shortened season, whatever, but the guys that they traded away played a big role in them getting to the finals. And so it's one of those, I think guys in our space, we always want to have a strong opinion on everything. But when the Suns made that trade, I kind of said, okay, I get it. You have a chance to trade for Kevin Durant. I'm not going to sit here and say that you shouldn't do it, but you're trading away your entire bench. And guys, we know we all love basketball. We all know the value that a bench brings, and you can't just rely on 4 or 5 players. And maybe I was a little bit closer to it because I live in Los Angeles, but I was watching that Suns Clippers series pretty closely. Kawhi goes down with injury after Game 2. Paul George doesn't play at all, and the Suns are still having to play their starters 42, 43, 44 minutes in a 48-minute NBA playoff game just to survive to get to round 2. I already thought it was a bad deal. Now, to your point, Phil, to your point, Matt, they probably at home, in a Game 3, this is the game that they probably have to win. But I still don't feel great about it. And even if they somehow survive this series, I don't see them beating either team on the other side of that bracket, let alone who could potentially come out of the East. And so this team was obviously built to win an NBA championship, and I don't think they're anywhere close. I think they need to add some pieces in the offseason because that top 3 is really good, and then there's a big fall-off after that.
And then with Klay Thompson, when I watch him shoot, man, if you're a young kid, don't you just tell is that the most textbook shot you've seen in basketball? Who else could you compare him to?
No, it's funny, guys, because obviously everyone knows I love the college game, but it is amazing. I was even telling my wife last night, I had the game on in the background while we were eating dinner, and I said, as much as I love the college game, the skill level in the NBA is just so insane. And, Klay Thompson is a perfect example. I mean, if he even gets a half a second look, from catch to shoot, it's going in. And so, who's the best shooters? I mean, obviously, again, I'm biased. Ray Allen's on the short list, former UConn Husky, obviously NBA legend, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. I don't know, but it's just I will say when I do flip on those NBA playoff games, I continue to be amazed at the skill level, and again, just the ability of catch the ball with a split second to catch, release, shoot, line up your body. And these guys are able to do it incredibly, and Klay Thompson's among the best that I've ever seen do it.
The big news, I guess, as far as transferring is concerned yesterday was Hunter Dickinson choosing Kansas with a video that showed him walking into a hotel conference room to talk with Coach Self. I think Arkansas fans are just happy he didn't choose Kentucky. And I mean, is there a center out of South Dakota State that Arkansas is in on right now? I forget if it's South Dakota State or North Dakota State, but you're the collegebasketballtransfers.com guy, so I'm asking you.
It's North Dakota State. Grant Nelson from lovely Devil's Fork, North Dakota. I think it's under 1,000 people, which, it's, first of all, it's just amazing. I mean, and it's the truth, though, is if you're good enough, people will find you, whether it's the NBA or whether it's that scouting department in the Arkansas Razorbacks, because I think they're one and the same at this point. Arkansas basically operates like an NBA operation. But, yes, he's a very skilled player, and he's a guy that is very much going through the NBA draft process. And I think, and I talked about this a little bit on my show this week, guys, is that this is an interesting couple days to monitor if you're a college basketball fan, because the college basketball deadline to enter the portal is May 11th, which I'm not great at math. That's next Wednesday or Thursday, something like that. But the NBA draft deadline has already happened. And so I think there's going to be another 3, 4, 5 players that are testing the NBA draft waters that are going to also put their names in the portal before the deadline on May 11th, just to kind of keep those options open. And I think most guys that are testing the NBA draft waters, they're probably doing it with the intention of, I hope I hear something that allows me to stay in the draft. But they're also wanting to keep those college options open as well. And so Grant Nelson is the best of that group so far. Like I said, about 6'11", 17.5 points per game, skilled guy. He played, I believe, in Bud Walton this year for North Dakota State. And, obviously if he comes back to college, there is going to be a long list of suitors. But I think Arkansas did their homework on this kid. They knew that he may be entering the portal, and I think they were ready to hop on when he did enter the portal. But again, I think the big question isn't even competing against other colleges for his service. It's a question of whether he does enough to impress NBA scouts and stay in the NBA draft.
And then there's Ron Holland, who,
Yep.
Holland. I mean, it sounds like it's either Arkansas or the Ignite G League team. Do you have a sense of, which way he might lean here? What's in the back of your mind?
Well, it's interesting, guys, because this news happened right after we got off last week, and I went back to the conversation we had about Darian Ford, and one thing I'll say, guys, is that the one thing I've learned covering this sport for as long as I have, there's no coincidences. And so for Arkansas to magically have another scholarship open, and I know there could be a few more with the Devo Davis, Jordan Walsh decisions, but for a scholarship to magically open 24 hours before Ron Holland becomes available, again, I think that speaks to Arkansas doing their homework, maybe hearing some whispers, maybe doing some planning ahead of time. And I think for Ron Holland now, it just comes down to what is he looking for at his next stop. Is it the college experience? Is it the college marketing scheme of playing on TV 2 times a week, playing in the NCAA tournament, maybe being the face of a deep run for Arkansas? Or is it that professional experience? I know the guy who runs the Ignite program, Jason Hart, was a longtime USC assistant. He played in the NBA. He's really good at what they do as well. Obviously, biasly as a college basketball fan, I want to see this kid on a college campus, but I understand why that is the G League Ignite program is an interesting alternative for him as well. So I think, again, it just comes down to what does he want out of the next year before he gets ready to go pro. I think it was 24/7 updated their rankings, actually have him at number 1 in the class. So it shows what kind of impact he can have. And this is another one, we're entering the middle of May here, and we still have some college hoops news. So it'll be interesting to follow. And then not only do we have college hoops news, but Arkansas finds themselves in the thick of things. So I think it speaks to, again, just, the program that Coach Muss has built and his relentless pursuit of talent. And this is going to be a fascinating one to follow over these next couple of days or weeks as long as he needs to make the decision. But I would also say, guys are supposed to be enrolling on campus here in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So I think it's one we get a decision on pretty quick.
And the news cycle expands, and Arkansas is usually right in the middle of it. And I don't think that'll stop while Coach Buss is the coach, or maybe anytime soon.
BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right down to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. BLEAV. Bet Online, where the game starts.